joined now by the Conservatives finance critic, Jasraj Singh Hallan. Mr. Hallan, good to have you here. Thank you for making the time.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I listened to your leader's criticism in the House of Commons earlier about the level of spending and the deficit relative to that level of spending. But I've also heard your party be really critical of how you would characterize the government's lack of action on affordability. How do you reconcile the two things? Don't they need to be spending and investing in order to address the affordability crisis?
Well, actually, they're working in opposite direction of exactly what you're saying. And that's what the Governor of the Bank of Canada said. It says the fiscal policy and the monetary policy are working in opposite directions. This government spent more than every single government before them combined. That fueled 40 years high in inflation. And Canadians got hit with the most rapid interest rate hikes ever seen in Canadian history. We've seen rents and mortgages double. It's double just to put a down payment on a house than it used to be. And then you throw on a carbon tax on top of that, that makes the cost of gas, groceries, and home heating more expensive. So not only is this plan not fiscally responsible, it's hurting Canadians, and there's more misery today than there's ever been in this country.
The inflationary spending that you're referencing, though, and the provinces did this as well, was largely to address needs as they presented themselves during the pandemic, bills and measures that your party supported in the House of Commons throughout that pandemic. So I don't understand exactly how they were supposed to do something different and why it's all their fault.
Well, let's be clear. So 40% of the pandemic spending had nothing to do with the pandemic. And today this government has a lot of wasteful spending, like $22 billion on Liberal-connected consultants. These are the kind of investments that the government is talking about that's been fueling inflation. And now, with this fall economic statement or false promise update, that what it looks like is they're saying they're going to spend another $20 billion, which means that it's inflationary. The Governor of the Bank of Canada was very clear recently. Even he says the deficits fuel inflation, and they're throwing more and more fuel on that fire, which is not letting interest rates come down and not letting inflation come down properly.
But I just want to be clear for people watching. What is it that Conservatives, of that $20 billion, the majority of which is going to increase housing supply to address affordability issues, what of that would you not spend?
Let's be clear. The money that they're saying they're going to commit and spend, it hasn't built a single solitary home yet. These are promises that they keep on saying. Let's be clear, last fall economic statement, the finance minister also promised to balance the budget. There was some hope that interest rates could possibly come down, but she did a flip-flop and then threw billions and billions of dollars into the economy on top of that inflationary fire and made inflation go up. And so interest rates cannot come down. So just because they have flashy promises and these great photo ops in front of these buildings that are already committed, it doesn't mean that it's actually going to get homes built, because shovels are not in the ground, yet photo op percentage has gone up exponentially.
I take that point, but are you kind of conflating a couple of things right now? I mean, there is a valid criticism of the government about why they waited this long to incentivize quicker, increases in housing supply, but they are doing it now. That's not going to happen overnight, right? They are making these announcements. Are you saying that Conservatives would not? I mean, you've promised to incentivize municipalities to speed up house building, right? Like, what's the difference?
Well, the answer is inside your question. It's been 8 years, and this government has spent more than every government combined before them. And that led to doubles in mortgage and rent prices and double the amount it takes for a down payment on a house. Life is more unaffordable now than it's ever been before. So, of course, anything that would be opposite of what this Liberal NDP government doing would be helpful. Our plan was clear. We had three asks. We had the number one ask: build more homes, not bureaucracies. Of course, we would have incentivized municipalities to
But that costs money. With respect, that costs money. You can't do the things you're saying you're going to do for nothing.
This would not cost anything to incentivize municipalities to increase their building by 15%. What that would do is help bring in supply. Number two, it costs $0. And guess what? I'll save them on the consultant costs. I'll give them some free advice. Axing the carbon tax today would put a huge dent in inflation, which would help interest rates come down, and the cost of gas, groceries, and home heating would come down immediately, overnight. And number three, they need to balance the budget so inflation can come down and so can interest rates. And again, the Governor of the Bank of Canada's job is harder to bring down those interest rates because of government spending. He said whatever the spending the government is doing is not helpful to him.
But other than the $22 billion that you wouldn't spend on any consultants, and I would respectfully remind you that money on spending on consultant went up during the Harper years as well, right? These aren't all Liberal friends. I think there are certain questions that definitely deserve to be asked of the Liberal government about certain aspects of consultancy, but they're not every single consultant that they've hired. you'd wipe out those $22 billion. What else? What other priorities would you tell Canadians that you will not be investing in because you are committed to balancing the budget as a primary objective?
There has been so much wasteful spending, not just on Liberal connected insider consultants, but things like the Arrive scam app that was $54 million that went to one company, a two-man company. This kind of wasteful spending for Liberal insiders, this is what's driven up inflation.
I mean, 50 million. I don't disagree with your assessment that that is a terrible spending decision, and we're watching that unfold in committee right now. But you're at $22.5 billion. The deficit is at $40 billion now. It's going to go up over the next few years. You want the government to also simultaneously address affordability, and you have not said how you're going to wipe out that deficit or what primary investments. Is it going to be transfers on healthcare? Is it going to be EI? Is it going to be, climate change overall and impacts? Like, what is it going to be that you're going to wipe out?
Definitely. So we'll bring in a dollar for dollar law. So any minister under a Pierre Poilievre government, every dollar spent in any department would have a dollar of saving. Canadians and businesses, because of this out of control Liberal NDP spending, are having to do that with their own budgets. Government should be responsible and do the same thing. We would greenlight green projects and other projects across the country that would not only help excel our clean, responsible energy industry and get more of our clean, responsible energy out to market, it would create stronger paychecks, more Canadian jobs for our Canadian people. These are the real things that a government can do today. And acts of things like the carbon tax so we can bring down the cost for everyday Canadians.
I have to respectfully, finally, just one final challenge for you. Look, again, you're going to cut consultants and the Arrive Can app. But if you're going to overall eliminate a $50 billion deficit, you're going to have to cut programs which are more meaningful for Canadians, addressing affordable housing, childcare, the Canada Child Benefit, EI. Are you going to do all those things and also balance the budget, and should Canadians buy that?
Let me be clear. We don't know how big of a mess we're going to have to take over. And even the PBO, Liberals' own public watchdog, has said that any type of figures that the government has come out with aren't the real numbers. They only increase. So we don't know what kind of mess we're going to have to take over. But I will tell you what we're going to do is make sure that we balance the budget so that interest rates and inflation can come down and Canadians don't have to be most at risk in the G7 of losing their homes anymore. We have to be responsible and get our responsible, clean, productive, clean and reliable energy out to the world so we can get better paychecks for Canadians. We will not be wasting that on consultants and other woke kind of policies like the carbon tax and doing these other things that are not benefiting Canadians, but they're helping dollars for dictators and not Canadian paychecks. Those are the kind of things that we're going to be doing as a government.
Mr. Hallan, I'm out of time. Thank you very much for your time this evening. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Jazraz, Singh Hallan is the Conservatives' finance critic.